Hi, this is Brandon Slade from thirstgym.com. Today we're talking about exercise called the barbell overhead press, or more commonly known as the military press, versus bands. This is a great variation used to develop some speed and power in your overhead press and really overload the lockout. It's also a little bit more shoulder friendly than the standard overhead press tends to be. So to set this exercise up, you are going to want a power rack, and preferably one that has the ability to attach bands to it. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to wield some dumbbells over and things like that and really kind of rig it up. Is doable, but this is definitely the more preferred method. Also, the way you're going to set your bands up, we're going to set it up like your squat. So you're going to run the bands through itself. One band comes up to the top on the sleeve on each side, and that's going to give you an adequate amount of band tension all the way from the bottom to the top. So it's relatively smooth, and you're not going to have any slack actually in the exercise. So if you need help with that, just check out our YouTube channel and the particular video in terms of how to set up bands for your squat. Now, when it comes to the overhead press, regular standard technique is going to be used on just our regular overhead press. So if you want, you can watch our video for more in-depth and be able to cover everything for the overhead press just itself. But some quick run-throughs here. Make sure our hands are inside our bench press position. So if your hands are normally here like mine are for the bench press, I come in just a little bit. That way it's right outside of our shoulders. And then we can have our thumbs over or under the barbell. That's all personal preference. And then when we get underneath the bar, we want to make sure that the barbell is stacked underneath our wrist and our elbow. We don't want to have it forward like this. It's in a good strong position, so when we go to press overhead, we will be able to do so. So we're going to get underneath the barbell here. I'm going to walk back good and slow, take a couple steps, and then I'm going to make sure I keep my body good and strong and tight, and I'm going to press fast up into the bar and then back. Just want to make sure I get my head through the window. And then down. And that's how it's done. Now I can tell you, that is a good amount of band tension right there, even with just the mini bands, because the overhead press usually don't have a huge 1 rep max compared to your other main exercises. So choosing band tension, you want something about a 20 to 25% of your 1 rep max. So if you happen to be, let's say, 150 pound overhead presser, then you're going to want something that's going to give you about 30 to 40 pounds of band tension. So this is probably a little bit much for that, but overall for me, that's probably a pretty good amount of band tension just in general. Now, the nice thing about bands is they have overspeed eccentrics, so the bands are constantly pulling down. So as you go to press overhead, you're constantly having to fight more and more load or tension. This is great because it can learn to help give you that speed when you go to push, and that's where the dynamic effort method comes in great with an exercise like this. So if you happen to compete with an overhead press in some variation, mainly like strongman, this is a great way for you to implement some dynamic effort training and building some speed off your front rack position, especially when it comes to a competition standpoint, and you have a load that's, underneath your 1 rep max, and you're having to continue to try to get reps underneath a certain amount of time. This would be a fantastic way to work on developing that speed and power for those particular weights that you might happen to encounter in competition. The other thing is you could certainly use this as a conjugate system with a max effort variation. Again, I'm not a huge proponent of 1 rep maxes for the overhead press in general. I can understand if you choose to do it in your high level competitive strongman, but for the average person, if you're trying to develop some strength with an exercise like this, 3 to 5 reps is probably a good sweet spot to be. And if you want some overall general hypertrophy, probably 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 10 repetitions. I personally would not choose this for my own hypertrophy training from an overhead press. I honestly probably would just prefer the regular exercise or the reverse band option in that case, but I do see why some people might want that. One thing to be cautious of though, when you do have bands on the barbells like this and you're in that front rack position, too long and too much exposure like that can begin to cause some tendonitis issues because of the way the bands pull down and you're having to fight and resist into it even when you just hold it. So again, great exercise to use, just make sure that you don't overuse it and abuse it because your wrists and your elbows might start to hate you for it. But other than that, I think that covers all the main tips and tricks for this exercise. But if you happen to have any questions about it, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. Thanks. Have a great day.